You want to find a property that's going to go up in value over time. And that's certainly what I'm looking for myself. My general strategy is capital growth properties first and cash flow properties second. So let's start with some big truths, which is some properties go up in value more than others over time. Buying the right property early can set you up for life. And this has certainly been the case with my personal property journey. Emily and I purchased blue chip assets in Southeast Queensland in 2018 and two more in 2020 as the foundation of our property portfolio. We focused on those capital growth properties first, buying properties 1, 2, and 3, all in scarce locations, which tended to be slightly on the higher end of price points because we were looking for scarcity and value. So when it comes to your own journey, you need to make sure these properties are going to grow for you so you can continue to leverage off your asset base, maybe sell some assets down the track, and then transition over time into more cash flow opportunities. So what drives growth in terms of property? Here's some things to look at in terms of the big picture on how to find the right property to buy. First off, we want to see, is this a place people want to live? We have to remember that property is generally an owner-occupied game. 70% of the people who buy houses here in Australia are going to be owner-occupiers, with 30% roughly being investors. So when it comes to the growth story of assets and property, generally the question we need to ask is this a place people are going to want to pay more money in the future to live in this location? Now, the second point is, are there jobs nearby? People need a place to work. That's why your major cities like your Sydneys, your Melbournes, your Brisbanes, your Adelaides and Perths have outperformed your major regional markets, because people need to go to work to earn money to then afford the home they want. And so having properties around those job centers, around those major cities, tend to be key drivers. Next we have, are there new shops, schools or roads being built? Using Brisbane as an example, there's lots of school zones that people are chasing after to get into the right catchment. Look at Brisbane State High in the inner city of Brisbane CBD. It's a very sought after school if you can get into that prized catchment. There's also infrastructure that comes into place, major shopping centres, roads, rail networks, busways. Those are all things to think about. And next we have to look at, are people moving in? Are these properties gentrifying? One thing we see here in Southeast Queensland is those bridesmaid suburbs. Those suburbs that aren't necessarily getting the hype or the interest, but slowly over time we're seeing more knockdown rebuilds and more renovations and more money being poured into these suburbs. And then they gentrify over time. So you want to see the owner-occupied mix, or the percentage of owner-occupiers versus renters. And is there gentrification where bridesmaid suburbs will then become the bride at some point? So what are the signs to look for when you're chasing capital growth? Let's look at some key indicators you want to think about. Number one is scarcity. Now, there are not many homes for sale, but there's high demand. And so scarcity is really that game of supply and demand. New Farm's a great example here in Brisbane, where it's landlocked by the river. There's only so many homes that are going to be built in that inner city suburb, and therefore there is massive scarcity if lots of people want to live there and enjoy the cafes and enjoy the park and the access to the CBD. So when you're looking at a property in your price range, look for scarcity. The next thing we want to think about is gentrification. Older areas which are being renovated. That's what we were speaking about before with those bridesmaid suburbs. Are they going to be the bride at a future point? You're looking at suburbs which maybe have some lower socioeconomic tenants at the moment, or some housing commission, but that's likely to be sold or bought out, or there's homes being knocked down and rebuilt. Gentrification is a really big play in terms of the capital growth potential of a specific suburb. You then want to think about that infrastructure. So are there planned upgrades, train stations, schools? In Brisbane, we're looking at the Coomera Connector coming in from the Gold Coast. We're looking at the Cross River Rail giving train access across the CBD. The Metro bus line. There's lots of infrastructure projects. You can jump onto the state government websites, onto the Brisbane City Council and each of the other councils, Moreton Bay, Logan and so forth, and look at those councils' infrastructure plans to see where the pipeline of work is coming through. Not only are the jobs great that are created by these major projects, but it's actually the utility and infrastructure that gives these suburbs a leg up if you've got that rail network or bus network to improve the lifestyle and living in those locations. And number 4, as an example, is low vacancy rates. Are the properties hard to find in terms of a rental? Is there high demand? Again, property is a game of supply and demand. And low vacancy rates is really a key indicator to show that the property you buy is going to be rented out and is in demand at this point in time. So let's go ahead, now we understand some of the growth drivers, let's go ahead and start trying to look at suburbs which meet the quantitative and qualitative criteria that we've been outlining. So does it tick these boxes when you're looking at the suburb? First of all, let's start with price. Can you afford the suburb, and is it within your price point? And then what is happening with those median prices? What's been the growth over the last 12 months, the last 24 months, the last 3 years, and the last 5 years? You want to look for areas which continue to have that price potential. So you want to know the historical growth, and then based on the data that you're looking at, is there potential for this suburb to grow over the next 3, 5, 7 year window? So when I'm looking at my own property portfolio, I'm starting with my borrowing capacity, and then I'm narrowing down to suburbs that are within my price point, so looking at the median prices and then looking at the growth potential of that area over the next 3, 5, and 7 years. Next off, are the homes selling quickly? How hot is this current market? Can we look at the days on market, for example? Days on market is really telling you how quickly these properties are turning over. Generally, settlements here in Queensland are 30 to 40 days. So if you're seeing properties with a days on market for a suburb you're looking at say 40 to 45 days, that's a hot market. If the days on market is 75 or 80 or 90 days, that tends to say that properties might be taking a little bit longer to sell. So look at the days on market, and you can actually track that over time to see how the suburb has performed in terms of how quickly the properties are selling. Next on our list, we've got our rents rising steadily. You want to look at the income potential and make sure you're getting a reasonable yield. Yes, we are focused on growth, but you do want the property to have a reasonable yield for your calculations. And for most of the houses we're buying for clients, which are bread and butter, they're going to have a yield of 3.5% to 4% gross yield at this point in time, which means you're probably needing to tip in, say, $10,000 to $20,000 a year, so $1,000 to $2,000 a month to hold these properties. But then if they've got the right growth potential, these can be great assets for building your asset base through a residential property portfolio. And then number 4 is, again, bringing in some qualitative factors. So we've been looking at some quantitative factors above on this list, but the number 4 is qualitative. What does the qualitative look and feel? Does the suburb feel on the up? Now, some people purely want to use all data. It's all data, no gut feel. But the way we run our business at Purpose Property is a mix of quantitative and qualitative data. And I think it's important to look at what's happening on the ground. What is the discussion points between locals? Where do people see the potential on the ground in the local area you're looking at? Whether you're looking in Brisbane or Southeast Queensland, where we specialize, or you're looking in Northern New South Wales or Perth or Adelaide or any of the other major capital cities, I think it's important to look at both the quantitative and the qualitative data to choose the right suburb for growth potential specific to your situation. So now we've talked about growth drivers and we've talked about the suburb. What about the property itself? What to look for in that property, whether it's your first home or you're just looking for a great capital growth asset? What are some boxes you want to tick in terms of the property itself? Are there any red flags? Is there something quirky or weird that's going to make it difficult to resell? Is it a triple split level property? Is it a super steep block with access issues? Even things like floor layouts. Do you walk straight into the bathroom when you enter the home? Look for things that are going to be red flags for future resale value. Then is there room to renovate or add value? If you're looking for levers to pull to fast track equity creation, this is something I've personally done on 6 or 7 deals over the years, is add value over time. Now, you don't necessarily have to get your hands dirty and DIY like I did through our renovation journey, but even having the potential to add value, in my opinion, can be fantastic because you can do that when you sell in 5 or 6 years' time and rent the property out in the meantime. So I like having the lever to add value through some minor renovations. Then, is there a good layout and some good natural light? Northern light tends to be a focus for a lot of owner-occupiers, and if you're buying in that $1.5, $2 million property price range in Brisbane or the Gold Coast, those owner-occupiers are going to want good layouts and good light coming in. And so be very wary of where the property's orientated from that owner-occupied perspective, and is it a functional layout that works for a family home? And then is it a good size block? We love bigger blocks, 600, 700, 800, 1,000 square meters, those bigger blocks have big potential to, again, pull a lever to maybe add a secondary dwelling or strata title off a rear property development, or go bigger than that and do a full-on subdivision. And so there's multiple layers to bigger size blocks and even knockdown rebuilds, and there's so many more opportunities you can get if you've got a larger block. Yes, it does require capital, but these bigger blocks tend to have higher underlying land component and therefore have higher growth potential than a smaller block, which is on 300 or 400 square meters in the same area. And so those are some things we're looking for as buyers agents and myself as a property investor when it comes to the property specific criteria. Now we want to talk about what to avoid, because sometimes ruling out things on a property can actually make it easier to source and find the right deals. So a lot of what we're doing as buyers agents, and a lot of what I've done over the last decade, is rule out lots and lots of deals which don't meet the buying criteria. So what are those red flags to look out for, or some of them? Main roads, flood zones, power lines, all these things are big detractors. They're going to scare people away in future resale opportunities. And it might be okay in a booming market where people see these opportunities and think they can get a great deal and get into a higher class suburb. But I would rather be in a suburb a little bit further out in a quieter, nice, family-friendly street than a suburb maybe a little bit closer to the city, but have these issues of being on a main road or having high-tension power lines or flood zones over the property. Another point is those unusual layouts and weird designs. Again, being wary of the property and how it functions and how it's useful. And then areas where growth has already peaked. Are we buying a deal that's not going to perform how we want it to perform? And am I too concentrated in terms of my risk? I'm getting asked a lot at the moment why I'm so dense in terms of my property portfolio on Southeast Queensland. And it's because of the growth and the data that we're seeing. I had the opportunity this year to buy in other markets. I could have bought in Melbourne, I could have bought in Sydney, in northern New South Wales, or somewhere else. But I continued to buy deals on the affordable end in Southeast Queensland. And the reason is I bought deals which have upside potential in terms of development and adding value. And I bought deals with larger land sizes at an affordable price point. And so when you're looking at these areas where growth may have already peaked, that's where you need to put the quantitative and qualitative data together. And so I currently own 6 houses across Southeast Queensland, 2 in Brisbane City Council, 1 in Moreton Bay, 1 in Logan, and 2 in Ipswich City Council. So I've got a good spread. I've got, 6 houses across 4 councils in Southeast Queensland. And then on top of that, I've got the unit block in Coffs Harbour, which is a long-term play with double street frontage and a higher rental yield. And so when it comes to my property portfolio and our family's property portfolio, we're looking at the growth of Southeast Queensland and Brisbane, and I'm backing it with my own money. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I had the opportunity to buy elsewhere, but I picked suburbs and areas that I believe over the next 3, 5, and 7 years have strong growth potential. Now, there's no guarantees with these things, but we can reduce the risk by looking at history, by making educated and informed decisions. And that's what you're exactly doing by watching a video like this, is giving yourself an edge to find the right opportunities in the market. And number 4 is high holding costs. You got to be wary that you need to be able to hold these growth deals. I see some investors, go on land bank. Let's go buy an acre of land and no house on it. Well, that's going to cost you a small fortune in terms of interest costs and holding costs. And so you've got to balance the growth potential with the actual cash flows and holding costs of these deals. Again, going back to my journey, when Emily and I bought houses 1, 2, and 3, we were negatively geared starting out. And as we added value to those properties and increased the rental value because of the renovations, and there was growth in the market over time, our holding costs improved. And so look at the costs right now, and then also do cash flow projections on what it's going to cost you to hold that property over years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on. So just be wary of taking on too high holding costs as well. So let's run through some final tips around this topic. Growth comes from the area, not just the home. We tend to start with price first, then strategy, and then we're looking at suburbs, property-specific criteria, and red flags. So work those things in that order. Then always think about resale value, even if you're not planning to sell, because the valuers are going to look at the property based on what owner occupiers and comparable sales are showing them. And so when you're adding value to properties or you're buying a deal, you want to make sure, because residential real estate targets 70% owner occupiers, then you want to make sure that the property has strong resale value in that owner occupied market. Don't buy based on your emotions. Be patient. The right deal is out there. I see so many people take far too long being in the market, and then sometimes they overpay on deals that aren't quite right, or they get emotional. And so that's where having someone like a buyer's agent could be a great sounding board. They could be the right person to walk you through that journey. But I'm also the first person to say, if you can do all these things yourself, then go out there and do it and take action, but don't let your emotions take over. Make sure you're running your numbers and that the due diligence makes sense. And another tip is focus on that long-term results, not on the short-term trends. There are some buyers agents or investors chasing 6 and 12-month growth. In my opinion, I much prefer being a mid to long-term investor. Why am I investing in Southeast Queensland? Yes, there is good potential in the short to mid-term, but also the long-term fundamentals are there. And I'm not planning on buying and flipping every 1 to 2 to 3 years. My minimum hold period tends to be at least 5, if not 7 years when I'm looking at buying these deals. Now, there are occasions, I've sold the Baby Queenslander, which was in Everton Park on the north side of Brisbane. And the reason Emily and I sold that deal only a year or two ago was to recycle the capital into our own home and into future deals. And so there can be purpose in selling down assets and going again. But overall, I think your vision should be long term. We should be buying these assets to build wealth, to create more choices, and to work on that future that you're desiring, which for me is more time with my family and friends and having autonomy to control my calendar. And so if you're looking for help and you're looking to buy a property here in Southeast Queensland, whether it's Moreton Bay, Brisbane, the Gold Coast, Redlands, Ipswich, or Logan, any of those local government areas, we cover all of Southeast Queensland. So if you see potential in this Southeast Queensland market and you want a Brisbane buyer's agent to help you through that journey, then head over to purposeproperty.com.au. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think are some key drivers when it comes to property growth? Where is that next hotspot location? Is it Darwin, Melbourne, or Brisbane? Those are the 3 big talking points at the moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and give this video a click over here for more things real estate, renovating, and financial freedom. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.